Looking to run your business in Notion? There are thousands of Notion tutorials out there that show you everything from building a habit tracker to a second brain to even an AI image generator for cats. But what about resources on how to set up a company workspace? That's quite hard to find. But you're in luck. In this video, I will break down the exact blueprint that you can use to build a scalable, secure, and efficient Notion workspace for your company. You start from a blank page and you will end up with the best-in-class setup that's better than 90% of Notion workspaces out there. Ready? Let's go. This is what we're going to build together. You will have a main landing page so that everyone in your company can quickly find whatever they're looking for. You'll have dedicated pages for your different departments so that if someone comes to the marketing home, they will see, what are the most relevant documents for me as an external person, but also for the internal team, right? Quick access to their main dashboard that will show them the OKRs, their projects, tasks, and docs, everything that is specifically relevant for marketing. You will also have a structured backend that will store all the data in your company, right, across a wide range of different things. And then when you go in deeper, you will have also set up different projects and dashboards that will help you, get the most important information for that specific project at one glance. Last but not least, individual contributors will also have their own unique dashboard, which is different from the team dashboards and all of the other things because it is tailored to only the things that they need to see as an individual, right? I see my task, my quick actions, my links, and so on. So if that sounds good, well, then let's dive in. First, we need to define the basic structure of the workspace using Teamspaces. Notion Teamspaces are basically containers inside your workspace that help you break everything down and structure it. You can find them here on the side, right, on the Teamspace section. I currently have one, or under Settings and Members if you look at Teamspaces. Now, the way you want to work them is mainly to guide people through the system, right, and help them quickly find the relevant information, and B, and that's even more important, to manage access rights. Now, when it comes to initially setting them up, it can be quite, overwhelming, but I wouldn't make it too complicated. I would simply replicate your organizational structure in Notion. So if you have a very small team, something below 10 people, and you don't really have a formal separation in actually, different kind of departments and everyone takes on every role, then maybe you don't even need different team spaces. You might as well just have one HQ team space. If you have a larger team and you have actually, different teams or departments, then it's a good practice to create one team space for every department. Now in this case, let's actually do just that. So we will have our main one, and I'm just going to click in here, say Team Space Settings. I'm going to quickly rename this one to, just HQ. And then I'm going to add two more team spaces for two different teams. So we want to have, on the one hand, we want our, ops, right? And here we will go with the gear icon, and let's stick with the orange color for this workspace. Gear, create that team space. And then we will create also a second one for our marketing department. Now, when you set up these team spaces, one thing that you'll see, let's just get some, maybe this one here for the marketing team. One option that you have while setting these up is these permissions. Open means that anyone in your team can see and join them, which is the default setting that you should choose when you create these team spaces that are, just separating it into larger chunks. But you can also create a closed team space. That's very good for things that need to be walled off. So for example, if you say, my HR department, they have confidential information that no one else is supposed to see, same with legal, these sort of things, and you can create a completely closed team space for them. Now, if you're on the business plan, right, then you can even create private team spaces that are not visible to anyone else, because closed ones will still be visible to everyone in the company. They just can't join them unless they're invited. But for this case, let's just create two further open team spaces. And that's pretty much all that we need to do at this point. Right now we have a bit more of a structure here. We can remove these default pages in there because we want to create our own ones. But that's pretty much everything that we need in terms of the team space setup. Next, a boring but really necessary step that most people miss. If you want to run your business in Notion, it's really important that you stick to certain best practices. And one of them is proper access management rights. Now, this is not a very fun topic, right? It's quite boring to organize it, but it's really crucial that you get it right from the beginning, because otherwise things will turn into a mess later down the line. The way this basically works, right, is whenever you invite someone to your workspace, you want to make sure that they have access to the right pages, to the right information, and to the right team spaces. And the biggest mistake that people make here is that they do it on an individual basis, right? So if I go to Settings and Members, I can of course see, these are the people, and I can now just add a member. And then I can go ahead and say, okay, this member is an ops. So I click on also on, these three dots here and say add members, and I will invite that person here. Because the way Teamspaces work is that you see under Teamspace settings, this one is my default Teamspace, HQ. So every new member will automatically join HQ. But for other Teamspaces, they need to be added because those are not the default Teamspaces. Now, that is very cumbersome. And particularly if you then later down the line, have 50, 60, 100 people in your company and you try to do this on an individual basis, it's a mess. So what you need to do instead is at the very beginning, and again, you don't need to overthink this, start setting up certain groups. And you need to have at least 2 groups in your workspace. At least an admin group and a user, right? You can then further break it down and say, okay, I also want to create individual groups per department. So you could say, okay, I will create also in this case an ops team and I will create a marketing team. And it's often a good idea if you say, okay, you want only certain people to be automatically added to a workspace, then this makes a lot of sense. In other situations, you might say, well, even if you're not part of marketing, you should still be part of the marketing team space, just because we will have, some documentation in there that people should be able to quickly access. So that's kind of a decision that's up to you, but you should at the very least, have this user and the admin group. And then what you can do is you can go in and say, okay, for all the team spaces, I want to make sure that I add members, and I will add, in this case, let's say, okay, we add everyone to all spaces. So I say, okay, all users should be part of ops as a team space member. And same for marketing, all users should be a member of marketing as a team space member. Now, unfortunately, you currently can't, or if you're on a lower team plan, you can't add now, the admins as the team space owner, because that is only available on the more advanced plans and not on this basic plan. So those will need to be added individually to the team spaces, but we still want that separate group because we need them for some other settings down the line. All right, so again, this doesn't take more than 2 minutes, but just take the time, set this quickly up, and then let's actually proceed to the first cool step. Now onto the fun part. When building a Notion workspace, it really helps to break things into 2 components, front-end and back-end. The back-end is all about Notion's databases. You need databases to organize pretty much anything, whether that's a task, a note, or a lead in your CRM. The front end is all about dashboards and building the workflows for the people that use the company workspace every day. And here, people tend to make 2 mistakes that really hurt them down the line. The first one is too many databases. And the second one is not properly utilizing dashboards. But don't worry, it's really not that complicated if you know how. So first, let's make sure that we have a solid foundation of databases. To do so, I'm going to go into a page in my HQ, my basic team space. I'm going to call this Backend. So I have one location where all my databases are stored. I'm going to give this a quick server icon so we can easily identify it. And then this is the page in which I will create all my databases. Now, in the beginning, I will create them here as inline databases, just so that we can quickly manage and connect them. But later, they will be all turned into pages and then be all stored here. And storing all your major databases in one single location in Notion has a lot of advantages. Most importantly, it means that you never need to go looking for information and your admins know exactly where to put things. And yeah, lots of trickle-down effects from there. So the type of databases that you will have in your company, of course, depends on what sort of information you have to interact. But there are certain standard databases that will be present in most larger team spaces. We need one database for our team members. We need one for teams, so the individual departments in our company. We need one for maybe our OKRs or like any other type of goals that we try to achieve. Then we need to have projects as larger components of our actions and tasks for the individual day-to-day items. We need docs to store our knowledge, and then we probably need a CRM of some sort, of like some place to store either people or clients or maybe both. That's the basic structure. And then of course you can, expand this from here and create some extra databases for events. If you have a marketing department, you want to do content separately, you could do that, right? Easy to break it out and create more if you need, but this is a very good starting point. So that's exactly what we're going to create right now. I quickly went ahead and created these databases all as inline databases on this page. And to do so, it's super simple, right? We just go somewhere, we type /database, then it pops up. We give it a name, and then typically delete the tag property as that gets automatically loaded in, just so we have a clean slate. just, click that quickly so that you don't have to watch me do that 10 times for other individual databases. And now it's time to fill them with life. And whenever you set up your databases, you basically want to think, okay, what for this type of data, right? So for a team directory, what is the type of information that I need to know about this? What do I need to record about it? And that's your first goal as the properties. And then you want to, have a second round going through it and thinking, okay, is this information that I necessarily need to have as a property, or is it enough if I just have it, in there? And we were going to do this, in detail, the slow way for maybe the team directory first, and then for the other ones, we can do it a bit slower. So let's think about what is information that you might want to have about your individual team members. You might want to know about them, okay, what is the role? What team do they belong to? You might need their email address. You might want to have a picture of them. And maybe if you're an asynchronous team, you want to have their, meeting link to quickly talk to them. Then if you further brainstorm, you might say, okay, it would also be cool to have like a quick bio of them, their interests or what they're passionate about. If you're trying to build a better team culture, maybe like an interesting fact or something like that. So that would be my initial brainstorm for properties that we might need for individual, people in the team. If I now go through it and think about, okay, which of these properties belongs, which of that information belongs actually as a property, or which one can I just add as, unstructured page content? Really thinking about, okay, do I need to see this at a glance when I look at a database? And do I need to be able to filter by it? Role? Probably, right? Want to quickly scan and want to see, okay, is this an individual contributor or a manager? Same by team, right? I want to have different views where I see only teams and different, people in different team. Same for email. I need to quickly access that. The picture we can use to display it, and the meeting link we can also then just, click quickly to go out there. But when it comes to bio interests and interesting facts, those are things that I really don't need to see on this main level. So for that, we can just refer, to the actual page body and later create a template for people to create it. So that's, again, a quick process to figure out how should I set up my database. And then it's as easy as going through here and doing exactly that. So let's add something for the role. And here we're going to create a select field, which is, either or. So we can say, okay, let's just add two options for now. Let's add, manager, and let's add individual contributor. But of course, you can just add the different roles in your team in here. Then we need a team option. And here we have our first connection now coming up, because we have teams already as a separate database. And whenever that is the case, right, whenever you have some information on one database that is a data type somewhere else, you want to make sure that you don't create a select, right? You don't want to have a select here with a team, but instead you want to have a relation to teams to allow you to pick that. And then later down the line, we can use that information to build automatic team dashboards. Really cool. So we're going to say, okay, please relate this to the teams database, show it on both sides, and here we have, we call this the people. And then we add that relation. Now, one thing that is less of a utility thing, but really helps down when your team space and your database get larger, is to also, during the setup step, think about the icons that you want to use. Because by default, right, it gives you this arrow for a relation. And what I would recommend instead is to replace that with the default one for that, right? So a person would probably have an individual person property, right? So I look for the person, and I will pick that here. And the teams would probably be several people. So again, we're looking for people. And here I will, give it maybe the 3 users just to make it visually a bit clearer. Perfect. We have that. Then we will get quickly the email. For that, we can just have the standard email property. And we need an image, which will be a file and media that we can upload. We can just call this, profile picture. No, I don't want to delete this. And then the meeting link, which is which is a URL property, which we can call meeting link. Let's continue with Teams. And for now, we actually only need a second property on here to indicate the lead. Right? We can already indicate who works here, but we might also want a separate property that tells us who is actually heading this department. So I create a new relation to the team directory. And this one will also show on both ends. And it will say on here, it will be the lead. And on the other one, it will say, head. And if I add this relation, we see now we have the same thing. Just quickly, we'll add a briefcase here to indicate that's the boss. And here, again, this to indicate belongs to teams. And now what we could say, let's say I work with Rachel and Ross in this company and our teams. Remember, ops and marketing, so operations and marketing. And I can now say in marketing, Rachel and me work and Ross. And the lead here is actually Rachel. Perfect. Quick and easy. Moving on to OKRs. On OKRs, we first want a status to indicate where is this, right? So let's look for the status property, add it, and say, okay, here we have like not started, that's perfect. But instead of in progress, I want on track, and that's supposed to be green. And I want not off track, and that will be red to indicate whenever we work on them, how's the current status. And then we have done, and that will be blue. But also maybe a second one, cancelled to indicate, this one did not go through the way we thought it would. And that would be big. Perfect. So those are our different status levels for them. And then we want also a way to indicate when they happen. Now, you could actually create a separate database now for all the quarters in your company, all the months or whatever time horizon you have for planning, and then link them to the OKRs. But for this purpose, we keep it a bit simpler and say, okay, we just do this time, and we say, okay, this will just be the quarter. So let's say, okay, we have here Q1 2024, and we have Q2 2024. And let's just create Q3 2024. And I can just say for each OKR, well, this is my option, for Q2. So one could be here to, let's say, increase lead flow for Notion consulting by 20%. And that will be my OKR now for the next quarter. Now, one additional thing that I probably want here, the OKR is the ability to tie it to specific teams. And we do that very easily, right? Through a relation. So I set up a relation, say, okay, this belongs to teams. And here I want to have it on both sides. I want my OKRs and I want my teams, add relation. And again, remember, we want to set up quickly our things. So here, if it points back to teams, we always use this emoji. And if it points to OKRs, for OKRs, let's take the target. That seems quite appropriate. And now again, what you see how this is much, much clearer visually than if you have all these arrows going on all the time. So this OKR is for the marketing part. Let's remove this. And then I think that should be pretty good for the OKRs. Let's check what my quick notes have here, what I wanted to set up there. Yes, OKR, status, time, and team. Perfect. So that's it. Let's move on to projects. Projects, first and foremost, also need a status property. So let's add the default status. And here I will leave it at those. Now, if your company has very, very recurring projects that always happen in the same way, then you probably want to have your different stages in there. Let's say, for example, you're a VC company, and instead of generic projects, your main type of projects is a deal. And a deal always moves through the same 7 stages, right? You have initially this like the prospecting phase, then you have like the further research, you have then like a pre-interest round, you then do like a due diligence and so on and so on. Then you could create probably a separate dedicated database for this type of project and then set up your statuses accordingly. But for generic projects in your company, just having these here is probably good enough. You might want to throw in an in-review status, but otherwise we are good to go. Then we need a date property to indicate the duration of this project. So here we say duration, and we add it like this. And now we could go in and say, okay, let's add a project. Let's say here, okay, set up new work with me page. And that's a larger project. And this one will go from, we have add and end time. So we say, okay, it goes from May 19th until the 31st. That's when we want to be done with it. Now, projects should have a responsible person. So let's add a person and call this responsible. And here I can now add me as one of the people. Now, you might be wondering at this point, okay, why do you add person property and not just a relation to your team directory? Well, that's because unfortunately, currently Notion doesn't give us the option to automatically, filter for entries here. Whereas when we add a person property, we can add use one of the most powerful filters in Notion, that is the me filter. So you see, I can say responsible contains me, and this is now dynamic. That means if someone else logs in, they will see all the tasks or projects assigned to them. And that will make it a lot easier for us later down the line to build dashboards automatically. So wherever we assign these things, we should have the responsible person. And then for whatever reason, we also need it to be related to the team directory, then we need to actually use third-party automations to do that. In that case, what we would do is we would add here actually as person property as well and call this, Notion account. Then we can assign the Notion account over there and can then use an automation to say, okay, whenever this person is tagged like that, create automatically a relation between these two entries. That's a bit too in-depth for this tutorial, but if you're interested in that, let me know below in the comments and I'll set it up. It's particularly useful if you want like more in-depth analytics for the team, see who works on how many tasks and so on. But for now, let's continue with this. So, okay, we have our duration, our responsible person. We probably want to see what team that project belongs to, right? So let's create a relation. We have two options here actually. We can, let's do this one. Yeah, let's say the relation and we relate this to team. And then say here, okay, this is the team that this project belongs to, and these are the projects of the team. So again, we will say for our team, we have the people icon, and for projects, what icon are we going to use? Maybe we want to use the globe to indicate what we're trying to achieve there. Perfect. So now we can also say this is part of the marketing team. And pretty much done, I think. What else did we have here? The team, docs and client and customer. So projects, we haven't looked at docs yet, but when we have knowledge, we probably have them at some point SOPs, right? Relevant brainstorms, a lot of notes, and we want to be able to quickly reference them on our projects. So again, we create a relation to our docs database for later and say, okay, please show me docs and please show me a project down here. And for docs, we will have the paper icon later down the line. And that's that. And then last but not least, we had the client, so our connection to the CRM. Now this depends, of course, on the type of business that you have. If you're a service-based business or like an agency or consultancy, like my business, then you have mainly clients and you want to link probably your projects to specific ones. If you have something else, right, you might have a different name for this. But let's just quickly set it up as well. So our relation to the CRM database, shown on both ends, have this. And then for here, let's take another people property. In this case, let's say actually this should be the two people, or maybe it's the profile. Actually, let's take the, I like the ID here better. Perfect. All right, so that's our basic setup for projects. Now let's continue to tasks and go through the same motions. Now, if all of this feels a little bit overwhelming, or you need more help because you just don't have the time while running a company to set this up, don't worry, I'm here to help. One, you can just download the free complete template for this whole setup down below in the description. And two, my team and I, it's literally our whole job to help companies and startups across the whole world to build better systems and save a ton of time using Notion. So if you want to work with me and the team, then just go to the website and then under the work with me section, you can send me an inquiry. Alternatively, you can also reach me through email, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you are. Just send me a message and we can see how I could best support you going forward. On tasks, we also first and foremost need to indicate are they done or are they not done. We could, of course, also here use a status property to indicate that a bit in more detail, or we could use a simple checkbox. Now, most of the time I would recommend going with status, even if you say, okay, my tasks are always either done or not done. I don't need this in progress because they're not like big entities. But what you can always do, you can always say, okay, show this as checkbox, and then you still have the options if you later need them because you want to increase the complexity of your build. But that way, you're just a bit more, forward thinking. One thing that we can do is we can actually replace this with a check mark and then make this super, super narrow. And if we wanted to, we could move it later to the front in certain views. But for now, let's leave it here. Perfect. So we have our checkbox to indicate whether it's done. We need a date that indicates the due date. We probably or definitely need a responsible person. Right? So again, person property and call this responsible. And we want to be able to connect our tasks to projects. So again, let's create a relation. Let's relate this to projects. Show on the project. This has always only one. Let's make sure it's correct. And for our projects, when we picked the globe, and for our tasks up here, we said we will pick later the checkbox. Perfect. Now what we can say is, okay, for setup, what do I need to do to work with me page? Write, copy, get a new headshot done, and maybe third task is like setup, tally, form. Perfect. All of these three belong to the project, so I'll just mark all of them, and I say project belongs to the setup work with me page. Now, one cool thing that I can do is I could, of course, now manually say, okay, please link these tasks also to a team. But I don't have to, because tasks will probably always be related to a project, even if it's like a catch-all project, right? You can just create catch-all projects for tasks that don't have a dedicated one. And what we can then do is just pull in the team based off the project it's assigned to. And we can do that through rollup. So let's create a rollup and call this team. And let's just give it the correct icon, right? So that we're consistent throughout the workspace. And say, okay, please look at the project relation and please pull in the team. And now we see, okay, amazing, this is pulled in for the correct team. And we could do the same now for the client, right? If you want to, for whatever reason, later be able to filter tasks per client, we could go in and say, oops, another rollup. Let's call this client, get the ID icon, and again, say project. And please show me here the CRM entry and the original. We, of course, don't have a person assigned there, but let's say this is like, okay, this is an internal project, but let's say I'm actually doing this for Steve Jobs. He really needs a new work with me page. And now I see, okay, all of this belongs to the client, Steve Jobs. And you see already the magic, right? We don't have any front end built here, right? This is not the way that we want to later interact with the data, but it's really cool to see how everything starts to be connected and tied together. Just one last thing, of course, also for tasks, we need docs. And here I will create a unique relation to docs because I want to probably assign different docs to the task, not necessarily always just show the ones that are on the project level, and say, okay, please add that relation. And then again, right, just take the paper here. Now, just like a quick side note, right, with these rollups, that of course means that you always show the same thing here as on the project level. There might be situations for other information where you need to do it manually. For example, let's say you have a location-based business and you have certain tasks, and then you have projects, but they might have, like tasks might relate to different locations, not always the same as the project. In that case, you need to then create a relation to locations instead of this rollup and then manually assign it. But whenever you can get away with saying, okay, tasks will always have the same team, the same client as the project they belong to, rollups just save you the click and make it a lot more scalable. We're making great process here. So let's see for docs. First up, we're going to make sure that our icons are correct. So let's take the globe for projects. And for tasks, let's take the check mark. And then let's make sure that we have also here status. That's something that's often overlooked. Docs probably are not always automatically finished, right? So you also want to make sure that you have this mini project management built into your wiki system, into your company wiki, to be able to say, okay, this is, currently drafting. We want actually to rename that. So like instead of in progress, we're going to say, drafting, and we're going to add here certainly like an in review property to make sure that if we have certain documents, that need to be reviewed before they are done. And then we have done. Perfect. Now, another thing that we need on them is we need to have a valid until property. So let's add a date property, and let's just call this valid until. And that way, whenever someone creates a property or document, they can, say, okay, this is, I said like this will be valid until, July 31st, then someone else should have a look at it. And that way you can quickly just guess, like when someone looks at it, to see whether they should check in with a responsible person or not. You can, of course, make this a lot more fancy, but I have a different company wiki set up where you can do it all automated through tasks and, through formulas and inputs. But here, this is a good solution to begin with. We, of course, need also, again, a casting property to have the responsible person. And then we probably want to link our docs to teams. That way we can later create team-specific pages for all the docs. So again, set up relation, relate this to our team, show it on both sides, add the corresponding icons for teams, multiple people, and then on teams towards the top, here, where are we? There we are, docs. They need the paper. Perfect. Anything else I wanted to create on docs? Status, responsible, valid until, tags, and teams. Tags. Let's add on docs, two things actually. First, a select property to indicate the type. So, right, you might have a brainstorm, you might have just notes, you might have documentation, SOPs, reports, and so on, right? Like whatever type of documents you work with, create them here, right? Meeting notes in case you don't have a separate database for them. And that way you can then quickly indicate what this is about. And I would really recommend to have, not a lot of different docs databases. There's an argument to be made to have meetings outside, but for most other documents, I would really recommend to have them all in one place. And then just use these tags to indicate what they are about, because that way it's much, much easier to later down the line find the knowledge and create this single source of truth for your company. So let's just say, let's create actually some docs. So let's say, okay, how to upload social like a LinkedIn post, how to produce YouTube video up here, and last but not least, brainstorm content Q1. And then we can just, go in there and say, okay, both of these are SOPs. If we wanted to, we could make the tags more fun by going in there and saying, okay, let's add a gear, right? Okay, this has nothing to do with Notion for Business in particular, but helps sometimes, to make things just visually more interesting. And the brainstorm is, of course, a brainstorm document. We can then add it to certain projects. So let's say for whatever reason, the brainstorm content that was really relevant for my new work with me page, and the person responsible for this is me, and all of them belong to the marketing team. So again, let's just go on of them, say, okay, here, let's edit the teams property and all link them to marketing. Perfect. That leaves us with only one last database, the CRM. And here we can, again, just add some very simple properties. Let's say also here we need a status, right, for the people. So this will be here. In this case, like to do in progress complete is not perfect, but we can just ignore this. So this will be, like a lead. This will be in negotiations. And this will be, then here we have either won or we have lost, for a very, very simple CRM setup. And of course, we also need a responsible person on each of them. So person and responsible. And yeah, then I think we are good to go for now. Projects, of course, need to be with the correct icon. And there we have it. We're not fully done yet, though, with our backend steps. We have all our databases set up with like the core data, and we've added some sample data so we can quickly see how it would actually look like. But one thing that we want to do before start building the front end is to set up the main views on every database. As you know in Notion, right, you can look at things in different ways. So for example, for the teams, right, we have this table, but maybe somewhere else we just want it as a quick navigation thing. So one thing we could do is we could create a gallery. Now the reason that we want to create these main views here on the main database is that they will be reusable. So let's say, for example, I have this team database and I want, there's just this quick way of using this as navigation. So I'm going to say new view. I'm going to pick the gallery and I'll just call this, Teams Snap. I will actually change the icon to the Teams thing. And I don't want to see the database title. I don't want to see page content. I just want this very minimal card. I don't even want to see any other properties. And then I click on done. And now later, if I go somewhere else, let's pretend this is a different page, right? I can actually create a different page. So test. I can now say, okay, create link view of database. And I can pick Teams. And I can say, give me the team nav, right? This is now available to be pulled in here. And that just saves me a lot of time later down the line, building out these views here once on the main databases. Because if I need to use this nav view, on 10 different locations, I don't have to set it up 10 times. So let's quickly do that. So for Teams, that's pretty much the one that I want, right? I want to have the team nav. Now on OKRs, I want to, again, have it probably as a table. But I definitely want to have one view, again, where I have this gallery view. So let's just call this gallery. And for OKRs, our icon was the target. And then here, again, right, we don't see the database title. We want to have this gallery, no page content, just this. And actually, on this one, when I have this, I always want to see the status quickly to make sure to be able to check where that is. Now, again, how deep you go with these views really depends on what you need, right? Let's say if I have a ton of companies, like a ton of teams, one thing that I want to do is actually create a separate view that is, broken down per team. So then I would say duplicate and then call this, by team. And on here, I would set up now a group and say, please group this by teams. So I want to see, okay, exactly which team has which OKR. So if I have let's just set up a second OKR for ops, let's say, document our core value engines. And this is, again, another Q2 project, and it is in operations. And now I see if I look on my by team, I have one for operations and one for marketing. And actually, this should always be hidden. Perfect. Again, but you can take it a few steps further and then break it down even more. You can already preset certain filters. So if here, in particular for OKRs, it probably makes sense to have this option to quickly filter for a specific quarter. So I'm going to say, give me this quarter filter, quickly accessible here. So I can just flip between different quarters if I need to on the later dashboards. So let's go through the other database and set up just some of the most essential views that you want to use over and over again. For projects, you definitely want to have a Kanban. I'm going to create this Kanban view, and here we will take a board. Again, we don't want to show the database title. Card preview none is correct. Now, one thing that I don't like very much that Notion changed it that way is now when you create, a Kanban board, by default, it's hiding all empty groups. And for a Kanban board, that's not good, because on a Kanban board, I want to drag things between columns, right? Even if there's nothing in there. So you need to go into group by status and then say here, hide empty groups, no. But what I want to do is color them just to, again, create some visual interest. Perfect. So now we have our simple Kanban board there. And now I can choose the properties that I want to see on them. Oops, let's just click on done. And let's say, okay, in the properties, what I want to see on this view is for sure the responsible person, the duration, and then I'm just realizing I forgot to create one property. I want to have a progress indication. So on projects, I want to see, okay, how many of my projects, my tasks are done. So let's just go in here and create a quick formula. The reason I do this with a formula, not a rollup, is because we have a bit more flexibility over how we show it. So let's call this progress. And let's say, okay, please give me this neat little progress indicator. And the formula will be to say, okay, go into tasks. And don't worry, if you've never written formulas before or are confused, you can, of course, find all these formulas in the blog post or in the free template that's linked below. So tasks dot the filter. We want to figure out how many of my tasks are done. So we say current status is done. And from that, I want the length. Now I can just quickly check that this works by saying, okay, if one of them is checked, does it work? No, nothing happens here. So let's see, what did we do wrong? We forgot this here, and I spelled length wrong. So let's spell this, correctly, length. And then let's click on done. And now we see, okay, 0. If I check one off, it should be 1. Perfect. Now, there's of course not progress yet. So we need to actually divide this by the tasks dot length, right? So by all tasks. And if I do that, and now get the percentage, I can then actually go in quickly and say, okay, please add this property, show it as a bar, and the number format will be %. That's great. But and now you see also the problem that happens with the rollup. If you do it, you have this like very long number. It doesn't auto round. So we can do that for us. So we will just wrap the whole thing with some brackets, and then say, okay, multiply by 100, then round it, and then divide it, and that way by 100. That way we get our needed 33%. If you want more numbers there, we can just add zeros, and then we have a perfect, nice, clean progress bar. Now we can go to our Kanban and just turn on this property to show it here together with the other information. So progress, please show it here. Perfect. Let's add some more views, because on projects, we also probably want to have this quick nav option. So let's say gallery, projects, nav, and let's say again here, card preview none, card size is correct, don't show database title. Just want to see that, but I want to filter it. I only want to see the current projects that I'm working on. So add advanced filter and say where the status of the project is in progress. And that way, whenever I load this, right, I only have these ones and none of the others. So it's actually set this one project that we have here to in progress, and then it will pop up here again. Quick thing that I forgot to mention, on the Kanban, I also want to set up a filter, because I want to make sure that like this done column doesn't fill up, right? Otherwise, if you don't set up a filter, at some point you will have hundreds of projects finished, hopefully. So for that, we actually need one more property that I didn't add in the beginning, and it's the last edited time property. Now, to be honest, you probably actually want to have a last edited property on pretty much all databases, because it's super useful to sort by most recently used. In this case, it also helps us to build a filter where we can say, okay, please here, make sure that you don't show things that are done, so is not complete, or let's turn this into a group where the last edited time is on or after 1 month ago. And that means, or like 1 week ago, depending on what you want. That means I can now drag this into none. It will still show, so I always see my most recent projects that are finished. But after a month of not, modifying anything with this project, it will disappear. So it automatically, cleans this backlog and doesn't clutter it up. Really, really useful filter for Kanban use. All right, perfect. Now, just one or two more things. We probably want to have a view for my projects. So we'll actually take this Kanban view and duplicate it. and say, call this my Kanban. Not sure why Notion currently selects this whole thing. Okay, the end goes away. Perfect. And on my Kanban, let's actually, use the board emoji here. I think we have like a board, if I recall correctly. No, columns, Kanban. There's like a, pillar, column. There it is. Perfect. Get these pillars, and here set a filter where we say, okay, only show me the, on top of this, only show me things where the responsible contains me. You see, there comes this me filter in, because this can now be used for pretty much everyone's individual dashboard later down the line, and make sure that it only shows the person the project that they individually are responsible for. We could do a lot more views here, but let's move on. But you get the gist, right? The views that you already know that you need to use later in your build over and over again, set them up here. And if you forget some, actually come back and add them there instead of creating a separate linked view. Perfect. So for tasks, what we definitely want to do is we want to have open tasks. So let's just take this check mark and let's call this, open, and database title is not shown. Perfect. Let's click on done. Now, one thing we could, of course, now set create an open and my open, right? So for the general team and only my open. But here for tasks, most of the time they will be on an individual level. So let's actually already set up this rule where we say, okay, where responsible contains me. Now, that of course requires people to always put in that they are responsible. And sometimes in a larger team environment that won't work, because people sometimes are lazy, they don't fill everything out, and then they wonder why things don't show up in the correct views. So it's best practice, if you set up these workspaces, to account for as many of these edge cases and make sure that for users, right, it feels just very, very smooth through that. So what we actually want to do, we want to go into tasks and create a new property. We want to create this created by property. Again, just a backend system property gets filled out automatically by who created it, and we want to hide this in the view. We don't ever need to see it. But here we can now say in our filter, okay, please, let's turn this into a group and say, show me all tasks where I'm responsible, or the ones where no one is responsible, I created them. So where, responsible is empty and the created by contains me. And now you see we have exactly that situation, right? All of these tasks, I forgot to set a responsible person, but they still show up now here in the system, and it's, fully dynamic. Whoever opens this will see the task that they created and didn't assign to anyone. So that way you don't have this issue. Now, of course, we said open, so we need to also add another filter and say, and of course, where, status is actually not, where status is not complete. Perfect. And then we get this app-like experience where we can just tick something off and it disappears. And you see, actually, the progress here just jumped. Let's just duplicate this and also have our, done tasks. So, because oftentimes, if we hide them automatically, right, we want to have a way to see the ones that were recently finished. So we will say, okay, status actually is done. Perfect. Now, just two last things let's also create this last edited property on here, right? So we can sort by it, because now what we can do on the open view, we probably want to sort by the due date ascending. So we have our earliest tasks that need to be done next at the very top. But for done, we want to sort it differently. For done, we want to make sure that we have the last edit time descending. That means the things that we finished last will be at the very top. Again, minor things that you can always adjust these views to how you work. That's the beauty of Notion. But these are some very typical settings that people like to have on their task manager. Before we move on, let's actually make sure that we format these nicely and only show properties that we need. So let's actually get, this check mark to the front. Then we get this nice effect of having a checkbox at the very first thing. Then this is fine. Project we want to see. The team, we actually probably don't need to see when if we assume this is the individual's person list. Client, we might also want to see. Docs we can leave, but we definitely can hide these two properties. And now, the whole thing is a lot cleaner to look at and also fits on a small screen. And then we would do the same for done. So this is how you would adjust them. You can, of course, create a minimal open task view where you show only very few properties and an expanded one, but that I leave up to you and how you want to set up your system. So let's just quickly go on docs. And on docs, we probably just want to have two things. We want to have one thing for, my docs. And here I will just set up a filter where we say again, right, we have a responsible property, so we need to have the same fallback. So we have this created time property, but the created by property. Let's hide it in the view. And let's set up our filter on my docs where we say, okay, let's make sure that, either responsible contains never pick your name, right? So that it automatically gets adjusted to whoever's logged in. And another group where we say the responsible is empty, but created by contains. Perfect. And now we have this thing for where everyone can see the docs. Let's just add like a quick proper icon here, the page. And here, what we probably want to sort by is, again, the last edit date. Edit. That way we can say, okay, please show me the documents, I used last at the very top and descend it. Perfect. We could, of course, then also, create a Kanban to track the status of our documents, but let's leave it at that because this video is already getting long. Last step, when we're happy with, how we set everything up in general, we can just now turn all of them into a page. So by doing so, we just click this, then we go here and set the correct icon, right, for our individual people. That was the person icon, and then I'll go quickly through all of them. That way we have now this much cleaner look, right? We can just say, okay, these are my databases, make it bold, and quickly underline it with divider. Much neater way to organize your backend. And then you can, of course, still go in them, right, and edit things, but it makes it, just for the initial setup, easier to have it all on one page. Now it's time to build our main dashboard. To do so, let's go to HQ, click on plus, let's put this up here, and let's call this home. Then we can add an icon, and then we can start building this page. Now, in terms of your home page and the main landing page of your company, the way you want to structure it really depends on what the main purpose is supposed to be. And generally speaking, you have one of two purposes for this page. First, purely navigational, right? Just like one place where people can quickly go to all the other spaces in the Notion workspace where actual work happens. Or second purpose, you can already introduce some workflow and dashboard elements on here. Now, I would be careful with doing too much of the second one, but it's very tempting to throw on all the information you could possibly have on here. Usually, it's much better to have a clean and simple page so that people that open this up and navigate to home can actually use it to quickly go everywhere. And you can always pin your actual workflow pages, the dashboards, to the sidebar as favorites, so you can still quickly access them. So let's, for this one, focus more on this purpose of navigation. So the amount front up top, let's just create a call out, and let's say, okay, we have here the quick info box, right? Welcome to the Notion home or company, whatever it is that you have here. Make this format it a bit nicer and say, okay, our text color will be orange to keep it clean with everything else, and then we create below this two columns for quick actions. Now, on the one hand, we can say, okay, let's do the let's say we have here main pages, and over here we have main databases. And then let's just add some dividers here, and then we can start linking things. Now, we don't have main pages yet. We'll have them in a moment, but we have already main databases. So we can start now using linking to them by using the add command. So if I press add, I can now look for things, and I can say, okay, let's show me here, my different things, and let's link here to, the team directory. Let's link here to teams. Let's link to pretty much all the databases, right, that we created previously. OKRs, our projects, our tasks, our what else do we have? The docs, and then last but not least, the CRM. And that way, right, people can just very quickly from here jump to the corresponding database that they're looking for. We will later, of course, add here the main pages for the workflow elements to do that as well. But for now, let's actually just keep going and say here and down below, let's say, okay, here our team dashboards, basically divider again, and here create now a linked view of a database. And here we'll pull in our the team database that we have. And remember earlier we created this team nav, so I can now just click on it, it pulls it in, and I have a team. Now, one tip from my also 99 Notion tips video is if you want to have very clean looks here for these, what you can actually do is you can go and rename, you can just add a space in here, and that way you then don't have anything other than the icon. And that can be really nice if you use already a heading that tells you everything that you need to know about this entry, then you don't need to double that information there again. All right, so we have that, and then last but not least, let's add something here below, read help question mark, And particularly in the beginning, when you roll out Notion Teamspace or like a Notion workspace to a new team that is not used to working with that, you probably need to give them some resources, how far they can get some help. So let's just, go for the question mark here and say, okay, here's how you can get Notion support. Let's take this, make it bold, and then below that we can just pull a line in here that allows us to expand this callout, and then now we can just like list out the contact details of the person they should contact. So maybe we have a specific person, right? So let's actually create a column, and then we can feel like an image placeholder, and on here, Matthias is your go-to. Matthias is our internal Notion champion. If you have any questions, you don't hesitate to contact him. Exclamation mark. Now, you can of course do two things. Instead of like writing Matthias, what you could also do is you could just link to Matthias, right? Because we created him as a person in team directory, right? Makes it even easier for them to then access more information about the person. And then we could of course then have email, something like that to make that easier. Perfect. Again, very, very rough draft for this homepage, but it's a good starting point. With that done, we can focus on building our team dashboards. For that, we can navigate to any view of our teams. So we can either go here to teams, or we can do it here. Click on the drop down and now set up a new template. And we will call this, new team. We will give it an icon, our team icon as a default, and then teams can pick their own one. And then we will set this up now. First things first, we want to hide all these properties up here to make the page, start immediately with the actual page content. So always hide for all of them. Next up, we want to make sure that we have the full page width, right, to work with for these dashboards. So let's toggle on full width. And now here we can start adding our things. Now, in order to help people navigate, we probably want to add at the very top also a column with a call out, right, that has then some information about the team. Let's move myself out of the way here quickly. Welcome to the dashboard. Here, and can add some other information there, and then below that we can start building the actual dashboard part. Now, dashboards in Notion typically means that you pull in information from various places into one view to help people get their work done quicker. And the most simple way to build these dashboards, and the one that I want to show you here, is to just take all the data that is related to an information, so in this case to a team, and display it here. And typically, because can be quite a lot of information, it's a good practice to hide these things behind toggles, so people can select what exactly they want to see. So let's do this. Let's create our first H1 toggle heading, and let's see what are all the things that we have connected to teams. Let's quickly open this up. The first thing, we have our OKRs. So actually, the OKRs, let's have them outside of the toggle heading so that we always have those front and center, even when it's not there. So yeah, let's just say create link view of database, and let's go here on for the OKRs. Let's pull it in. And let's say, okay, how do we want to view them? We probably want to have them as this gallery view right at the very top. And then we want to, again, have this clean look and set a filter to say, okay, add advanced filter. Show me only the OKRs here where the team contains new team. And that now means that it will, for now, everything will disappear. But later when we create this and apply this for different teams, it will automatically filter to only apply, only show the OKRs for that specific team. So let's actually add here a heading as well and call this OKRs and say, our goals for this quarter. And since we say actually, our goals for this quarter, let's make this gray, just for some visual clarity. We need to, add something to our filter. We don't have currently this quarter filter. So let's add that filter here to, have it easily accessible. Now you might be wondering, when do you actually use filters here for these advanced filters and when just these ones? I would say in general, always add filters, advanced filters. The UI is just much better and it's much easier to create complex conditions. In particular, if you want to combine and or filters. But these simple filters are great for giving people access to control them, right? So in this case, quarters, we might want to just manually then change them from one to the other. So by having it here as a dropdown, it's a bit more accessible than having to go in there. Perfect. So next up, after OKRs, let's list out our projects. And here I don't have access to the same icons, but we can just use emojis to make it a bit clearer and say, okay, we have projects. And let's actually create the other toggles as well. So we have projects, we will have tasks, and we will have for sure docs, right? So page, or like, maybe writing as the here, and docs. Anything else? Docs, people, OKRs project. No, that's good for now. So let's keep it like that. And then we can go inside and create our linked database views. So here we pick now projects, and we can pick our Kanban that we set up before. And you see, this is now much quicker because we have already set it up. And all we need to do is like add to the filter another rule where we say, okay, and the team contains, again, right, the new team, so it automatically is updated whenever we look at it. Then for tasks, we do the same, create link to your database. Let's look at tasks. Let's give me open. And here we need to do two things. First, when we have this wrong filter in for the team, we want to see all tasks, not just like all team tasks, but not just from them, but we can, because we've created as a group, just quickly remove it, and still quicker than, setting it up from scratch. So you can just say, okay, add to that one where the team is contains the new team. Perfect. And then can just click out there and say save for everyone. And then we can duplicate this and say, okay, actually let's give me my done tasks, and change the icon to moving to the side this, and make sure that here our filter is just flipped so that the status is done on this one. Perfect. So much for tasks. And then last but not least for docs, again, create link to your database. Let's create it for our docs. Let's give me the table view actually of docs. And here we set up our filter and say also here, right, where the team contains the new team. And now I will only see the docs specifically for this team. Here I need to hide this because I haven't set up the views properly before. But yeah, you get the gist. And now we get this dashboard, and we can quickly see all the related elements. Now, one other thing that we can often, or like it's often nice to do on these dashboards, is to give people some quick actions in the form of buttons, for example. So what we can say is, okay, let's have a button here, and let's let people add quickly a new project. So let's say, okay, new project. And we can say, when this button is clicked, please do this. Let's add a page to our projects database. Let's make sure that, we have it automatically assigned to this team, so that this link is already set. And then we want to have one more step where we say, after you do this, please open the page that you just added in SidePeek so that we can set up all the other information that you want to set up for it. Perfect. And then we could do the same for docs, new project, new docs, new doc with page. And then here we just flip this from add a page to docs. And here as well, right, we want to make sure that Teams is connected to this page. Perfect. Now, one thing that we, with our current setup, can't do here is like add new task button. Because remember, tasks are not directly linked to teams. So they're linked to projects, which then have teams. So we will create like a new task button on the project level. But if you would want to have a button here, right, it could not automatically link it properly. So that's why I would leave it out here. But again, this comes down to like how you want to build this. And now let me just show you how this looks now in practice. Right, so if I go out and say marketing, please apply this template. I then see, okay, it automatically has loaded in this icon, and it automatically has loaded into OKRs. I see my OKR for marketing, right? It pops up here automatically. And if I open up the toggles, I see my project for marketing. I see my tasks for marketing. And if I have any docs, I see them here as well. And that's how quickly it is to now set up new teams, right? If you add 3 more teams, you just have this template ready to go, and it's super easy to do so. Just saves you a lot of time. Now, one thing that you want to do is you want to actually make sure that this template gets applied automatically for new teams. So click on this toggle, make sure you set this template as default for all views and teams. And that means if you now create also a sales team, it will have automatically everything loaded in, and you don't even need to click on this button. Pretty smooth, right? Now, the way to how people then can navigate to this is, of course, very simple to the homepage, right? If I now just click on marketing, I go directly here to marketing. And actually, I just realized one thing that we need to set up as well, so that it doesn't, open like this. We need to make sure that we say here, okay, please, whenever under the layout options, open pages in full page. So I should actually go back right to the original instance, and let's do that right now. to make sure that in the future when I have a nav view somewhere, I don't need to do it manually. So let's go to Teams and let's say, okay, please here for this nav view, whenever I open anything here, let's make sure that this opens in full page. Perfect. So that's one way, right, to navigate there. But of course, we also want on the individual team spaces to have the front and center. So in order to do that, we would probably just set up like the own home pages for these teams. I'm just going to duplicate this now to save time. So I'll just take a home, move it to ops, let's call this ops home, and then like create another one here and duplicate it for marketing. And then what we can do is subs marketing home, adapt these pages, because those pages of course don't need to show the same information that our HQ needs to show. So we could say, okay, for example, on marketing, what we might hear is like for others and for the team. And then what we could do is we could create certain pages. For example, if you have some procedures, like how do you request certain assets from marketing? How do you do X, Y, Z? We can add them to our company wiki. Let's actually quickly do that to show you the full process. So we go to docs and we say, okay, how to ask for a campaign. This will be an SOP. Let's actually just give this a nice little icon. So let's say, okay, this one will be for, let's give the painting, something like that. And then on our marketing home, what we can say for others, we can now link to this document, how to ask for a campaign. And that way, when they open the homepage, right, they can immediately see, okay, these are the most requested things that I typically do here with marketing. These are the workflows that happens here. Easy to find the information I need. Whereas for the team, right now we have the database here, but we would remove that and then have instead links to the most important things for the relevant team. We would then, on the individual team dashboards, of course, adjust that because we don't need to see other teams there. So let's change that from teams dashboard to, maybe projects. We want to see, again, navigation purpose. We want to have a quick and easy way to say, okay, what are our ongoing projects for marketing? So we say, okay, projects, marketing. We give it our, let's say, let's actually have a Kanban here, right? Move everything out. Here we need to set our filter manually, right? So it's like a little less efficient than the other one, but still we all need to do this for this one view that we use here. So it's still fine. So we say, okay, and the team. And this time we set it specifically to marketing, say for everyone, and we see our projects here. And then last but not least, we want to make sure that we have a link to our dashboard, right? So where we have our dashboard, we can then say, okay, here, let's take the marketing thing that we created in Teams. And then people can just click on here and quickly open the dashboard and see all the additional information that is not relevant for someone, who just wants to visit the home. And that, of course, you would do then for ops just the same way. And last but not least, a dashboard for individual users. When it comes to creating these dashboards, you pretty much have two options. You can either create one central dashboard for individual contributors that everyone uses and no one can customize, or you can create different dashboard that, at like a starting point for everyone, a sort of a template that they can then adapt to their own needs. And I'm going to show you both methods. Typically, I always use the second one because it gives people more flexibility, but sometimes people prefer to have, everything streamlined on one view so that they can explain to people more easily how it's supposed to work. Let's just, create a page for this purpose for now. Let's call this, my dashboard. And again, give it a neat little icon. So this is maybe like, let's take the rocket, make it again full width. And then we pretty much follow the same process as for the team dashboards. Just with the difference that this time everything will be filtered for me. So what we're going to do is first up, we again might want to have some columns up here. On this left hand, maybe we have some instructions, and on the right hand we just do like quick actions and quick links. Add some dividers below, and then here on the left hand we can then link to very essential company things where we do the wiki, these sort of stuff. On the quick actions we will add buttons in a second, and then we're going to add again like our toggle headings for the different things. Now, what do individuals have? Individuals have also projects. Individuals have tasks, and individual subs. Sorry for that. Did not manage to click away aside from it. Individuals have tasks, and individuals have docs. So let's create the docs as well. For this one, I'm just going to show you how to do this for one, and then I'm quickly going through the rest because you've already seen this process one, but it works really exactly the same way. You just create a linked view of a database, and you say projects, And then, my Kanban, we even have it set up already for the specific view, so we don't need to do anything else. But if you wouldn't have these filters set up before, make sure, right, that you go in and on this filter have this thing where it says, okay, responsible contains me. Or even better, do the approach that we had for tasks, right? Where we say, okay, tasks, we have like open and we have done. And here we have the filter set up to show me everything that I've created and no one is responsible, or things that are still open. You see, I can even do it live because you see how quick it is. Since I've already set up these views elsewhere, it literally takes me less than a minute to do that, unless I keep clicking on the camera instead of the thing. And then I have my docs set up here as well. Perfect. So that much for that. And then for the buttons, one thing that we want to make sure with the buttons on this page that I want to show you is when we say, okay, here add new project. We want to make sure that when we do this, we say, okay, add page to our projects database. And here, when we say edit another property, you want to make sure that the responsible is by default set to the person who clicked the button. Of course, you sometimes create projects and tasks for others, but most of the time you create them for yourself. And that way, again, right, you can just enforce that people do this without them having to do additional data entry. And then last but not least, we have also here the open page, the new page added in side peek option. All right, let's click on done. And then I quickly just add the other two buttons, and then we're pretty much already done. Now, if you use this page for the whole company as a central place, one thing that you definitely need to do is you need to go in here and you need to make sure that you lock this page so that people don't accidentally make changes to it. Which means that they also just can't add things here on their own, right? That's the drawback of using this like centralized thing. They can't just click on this plus button, it disappears. They need to click on the button to actually add things to it. So they can use this to see where things go, but then they always need to open things up. They can also for the check and check, they can't really uncheck it. They need to open it up and check it. So it's just like a bit more cumbersome, but you sort of need to lock it, because if you don't lock it and someone, deletes something accidentally, they delete for everyone in the company. That's why, overall, I'm not a big fan of having this like one central dashboard for everyone. And instead, I would always recommend to set up a template. And the way we do that is we actually create a new database. So let's do that. Let's call this dashboards. And we can delete this here. All we need to do is basically one property here. We need the created by property. And then we're going to create a template. But before we do that, we quickly go here and we will copy everything that we have added here. Copy. And then we go back to the backend dashboards and say, okay, new template. And we call this new standard dashboard in case you have several types. When we have an advanced dashboard and a simple dashboard. And we do, okay, full width. And we paste everything in. Everything already, is properly set up. We can actually rename this and say, belongs to, and then we can hide this because we don't usually need to see it. Always hide, add the icon as a standard icon to it. And that way we can now let people generate their own dashboards. We're going to say, okay, this is our, default, set as default dashboard for all views. And now if, my employee comes in and we build some UI in a second, but they can go in here and say, okay, it is Matthias dashboard. And this is then like another one would be, Ross dashboard, and we both have the same starting point where it looks identically the same, but we can adapt it. Now, maybe I always want to see my tasks front and center, and I don't want them in a toggle, right? So I say, okay, please just turn this into normal text. I need to see my task list be at the very top without that. But we have the starting point for everyone in the company, so they have the same foundation, and now everyone can adapt it. And if I delete accidentally something, it's not the end of the world, because don't delete anything for other dashboards. And I can always regenerate my dashboard, right, if that happened to me. So much better UI. And what we can do then is what we could do, for example, on home. What we could do is we say, okay, team dashboards, and we can say, okay, your dashboards divider, and say, here, create link to your database. We link to our dashboards, which doesn't have a pretty view set up, right? We should have done that there, but let's just do it now here on the fly. We take the gallery. We don't show a database type, we don't show the page content. We just want to show this, and then we want to make sure that we filter, say advanced filter, and okay, belongs to, contains me. And now it will only show me, it shows Ross dashboard, right, because I created that, but ideally it only shows people their dashboard that they created, and they quickly go to them. And then we can even take it one step further and say, okay, need help. Maybe we add another call out there, you know, I can say, you know, call out, can't see your dashboard. If they don't have anything yet, right, you can just give them a button to generate a dashboard with one click. Say okay button. You probably don't have to have this on this main landing page and would have this in your onboarding and set, right, because not the people who then have one don't need to see this information. But for now, let's just do it like this and say, you know, create new dashboard, and we say, okay, whenever this button is clicked, please add a page to, and we select the database dashboards and we see it already selects, you know, like my new stand dashboard, and then you know, again, just open this page, the new page added as a full page, and that way people can then just click this one button and they, you know, generate their dashboard, everything is loaded in, and they can start working with it immediately. I can't overstate enough how powerful these dashboards are. And I hope you already see how they all come together, right? We have now our automatically generated dashboards for teams, automatically generated dashboards for individual people, and we can take this one step further. Pretty much on every entry that you have that links out to other things where you want to, you know, pull that information in, you can set up these default templates. I'm not going to show you all because you will get bored, but let's just do it for projects quickly. So let's say, okay, on projects, I want to create a new template, and this will be, you know, my new project template. First, I will add an icon to just make sure, you know, we have always the same visual language. Then I can quickly check which of these properties I actually need to see when I open this. So last edit time I want to hide. Then what do I want to see at the top? I want to see the very top. I want to see who's responsible. Then I want to see the status. Then I want to see the team it belongs to, the duration, and then the progress. And then the other things, these I don't need to see because those will be pulled as part of the dashboard into the page body. So we will hide them to have this cleaner up here. Perfect. Then I'm going to turn on full width, and we're basically playing the same game that we always play. Now, in those of projects, of course, one thing that you might want to do is you might want to give your team additional structure. Depending on the way you organize your work, maybe you use, you know, traction as one philosophy, or a different thing where you say, okay, projects always have, you know, 3 phases. They always have, you know, the kickoff, they always have, you know, the execution, and then they have the, you know, the review. Then you can just add these things here, right? I'm not gonna, you know, give now this specific structure. You can adapt it to your own, but what you would just do is probably with toggle something like that. You might say, okay, camera again. Let's say, you know, first is the, you know, the planning. Then we have another H1 toggle is the execution, and then last but not least execution, and then another H1 toggle heading. Last but not least we have our review stage, and then below each of these, right, you can now add specific information that is relevant only to that stage. So you could say, okay, you know, just write the text, right? Give people the blueprint, the checklist, the things that they have to do whenever they execute it. And what you can do on top of that is you can, of course, pull in all the relevant information from elsewhere. So in this case, right, projects are related to tasks. So let's create our toggle H1 heading and say here, tasks, and we have docs. So that H1 heading, and call this for the writing thing, our where's our writing icon for docs. Do they have anything else? No, I think that's it. I mean, we could pull in the other people that are related to it, but let's leave that actually for now. And then just go in here, say, okay, create link view of database. Let's pull in tasks. Let's pull in the open tasks, right? Adapt our filter to make sure, instead of our responsible contains me, we remove this, and then say instead of that, where, you know, the project contains new project. Perfect. We will then save this filter. Oops, this like bubble, really the bane today. Save for everyone, and then duplicate this and, you know, our done tasks or the full checkmark filter is just switched from is not done to is done. Perfect. And then do the same for docs below in a second. But that's exactly the same procedure that we've seen a few times. And now what happens, right, is if we go again back, right, and say this is now my default for all new projects, and I create a new project. Let's say, for example, here, right, my marketing home, and I go on my marketing dashboard, and I say, okay, let's create a new dashboard and a new project. A new project for marketing that we have is to say, let's say, what do we have? plan, the scorecard quiz. Great scorecard, something like that. And we see immediately it feels at first like it's now linked to the team, right? Because I created it through the team dashboard. I have my planning, execution, and review steps here, and I see all my tasks linked below. If I create tasks through here now, they are also automatically linked to the project. So let's say, okay, brainstorm key customer persona, and another task where I say plan out, result page. You see, we already have them linked to this scorecard project. And if I were to look at my marketing project, the open tasks automatically show up here because, remember, tasks automatically identify what team they belong to, and you really can see how it all ties together. If I check something off here, plan out result page, we see this jumps to 50% progress. One of the tasks that appears here, it's now and done. Everything is really now coming together as this amazing app, thanks to the combination of our backend data that we set up in the very beginning, where it still was quite dry, but now by using this front-end UI to make it, really workflow-oriented pages. Nearly done. From here, it's mostly about adapting this blueprint to your individual needs. But there are two more things that are a pretty good idea in nearly every situation. First, a company wiki page, and second, a landing page for your company. Let's start by adding another top-level page to our HQ. Let's call this company wiki, add a corresponding icon here, and then make this full width. Now, Notion is amazing for knowledge management, in particular with the baked-in AI. It's really powerful, and this ability to create these wikis based off your databases is another feature that comes in super handy. Now, on your company wiki, you typically will have two types of information. You will have your static content, and you have dynamic content. Static content is information that will always be present. This will be mostly links to core documentation you want to see there always front and center. Dynamic content, on the other hand, is where you leverage Notion's databases to dynamically pull in certain information that gets updated automatically as you go. Both have their own purpose and their benefits, and we're going to use both of them here. Let's start by creating actually 3 columns. And let's say, okay, we have start here. Then we have, in the next column, we have, company. And then last but not least, we have maybe benefits. Now, below all of these, I'll just add a quick divider for some, visual clarity. And then below these, you can start linking permanent static content. Let's actually quickly go to our backend and the docs and create some docs for that. So let's say, okay, we have maybe our Notion and how we use Notion. And maybe we have another document that is, this is in my docs. We have another document maybe that we can call, that is like our, vacation policy. We have another doc for our, invoice, expense reimbursements. And maybe we have our org chart. Now let's quickly go in there. Well, actually, we can go back first, wiki, and make it pretty. This is static content, right? So we have certain pages, and we now want to make sure that whenever someone looks at this wiki, they will always see this core documents front and center. And we run again with the add command, similar to on the hand page. We're just saying, okay, let me look for the how to use Notion document, and I link it here. And then under company, I link the org chart for now, and under benefits, I will link my vacation policy, and I will link the the expense reimbursement. And what I meant with pretty, we can actually should add some icons there so that it looks a bit nicer, but we can do that in a second. Now, this information will always be done. You probably have want to have 3, 4, maybe 5 different documents here per column. Again, adapted to your own workflow. Have 2 columns if you only need 2, have 4 if you need more. But that way you can tell people, okay, if you look at this company wiki, you most likely are looking for one of these documents, right? This is what I most likely think you should have a look at. But if that's not what you're looking for, you can then use dynamic content to pull in information. So what we can do then is we can say, okay, let's, for example, we need to see all our SOPs. Let's create an H1 toggle, again, just so we can hide things. Let's add gear emoji here. I won't be able to hit that without clicking here. So the gear emoji, and let's call this SOPs. And now what we can do is we can go in here and say, okay, create a linked view of a database. Please give me my docs database. And now here, we haven't set up these views, right? We should go back and do that, but I'll skip that now just for the sake of being a bit quicker. Add an advanced filter, and we want to say, okay, here, show me all the documents where the type is SOP. And then we can save that. And now under this one, everything shows up that is an SOP. I can filter it, right? Additionally, I can just say, okay, only show me the SOPs that are done, right? Let's say, okay, these two SOPs are done. I could do that. But that way, and then I can, one other thing, I can just say, last edited time, descending. And that way, my, most recent SOPs are always here accessible and people can quickly find them. And I can just now repeat this process and say, okay, instead of SOPs, what else do I need to see? Maybe I need to see here, my brainstorms, right? So let's take the brain, let's say brainstorms, and add, just modify our filter that we have here and say, okay, where the other things that is SOP, we remove this, and now we say is brainstorm. And we can keep going for all of these things so that people then can say, okay, I'm looking for SOP, this is what I'm looking for. We can take this in one step further and say, okay, like my overlaid run heading, and take our, let's take the writing maybe as a thing, and say, docs pipeline. And down below here, show our docs as a Kanban board. Review, say, okay, my docs again. And this time I take this and I create it as a Kanban board. Again, should have set it up somewhere else, but let's leave it like this. And I can easily see, when I have everything set up correctly, which means going into group and saying, please show me all groups, color the columns. You can see, okay, how are we actually, work on our different docs, which other things that need to be worked on. You can, of course, filter this down and to only show people their docs, right? They should be worked on, and so on and so on. But since we're using databases here, this will update automatically. If you add 5 more SOPs, they will show up here, right? If you added another SOP most recently, right? If I, let's say let's actually add one because it will automatically detect and say, okay, how to add documents to the company wiki. You see it now at the top here, it's the last document that we touched, and we just see that it's easily accessible here as well. So if people add it to other places, right, if they add a new SOP through a project somewhere else, it will also pop up here. If they add a new project and document through another task and connect it, it will end up here. Let's actually just look at that, right? So let's say we're in marketing. Okay, we set up this new work for me page, load in the template that hasn't happened here yet, and realize, for this project, actually, I should create an SOP. No, we haven't linked to the docs here actually before, so that bites me now. But let's go back and quickly set it up. Say, okay, docs, filter, where where it is projects contains this one. So of course, not to throw away, right? Should be done through template, but just to go quickly here, we have our brainstorm content one. Let's actually add an SOP here where we say, okay, this one is, how to do things. Can't think of any new names. And the type is SOP. So someone added it through here. If someone else now looks at the company wiki and checks SOPs, they automatically have this pop up here without the need, for it to be manually added here. That's the power of static dynamic content, right? Where it pulls it in from the rest of your workspace. So much for how to set up a simple company wiki. And the last thing, of course, that we should do is we should go back to home and link this at one of our first main pages here, right? So our company wiki is definitely something that people should have access very, very quickly from this main page. And there we have it. In the introduction that I filled before I did all of this, I also mentioned we need to have a landing page for our company, but of course, we built it much earlier in this video, so apologies for that. Hope that doesn't create too much confusion. But yeah, I think this is all looking pretty good. But there is one other thing that we still need to do. Remember earlier in the video when we set up the user groups? Well, now it's time to make use of them. Let's head to our backend and make sure that our databases are locked now, right? We don't want anyone to be able to just edit the database and change the different properties. In order to do so, we want to go to these groups and we want to invite a group, right? So let's say, let's invite our user group and let's make sure that users don't they have access to this by default, but they only can edit content access. And then we of course also make sure for everyone at Notion by default only can edit content. And then instead, as opposed our admins, for them it's okay that they have more rights, right? They can edit content. This group can edit or full access rights, so they can still modify things. And that way, we just need to check, right? Everyone at Notion, they also need to be Teamspaces members, and also be done to candidate content. So you need to go like through different like settings, make sure that it happens all correctly. But through our user groups, you can then later like give the admins automatic access rights. And that way, these people cannot change the structure, right? So if someone with candidate content rights is here, they can still add new rows, right? They can change tags, all these things, but they can't modify these properties, which is super, super important, right? So that's the first step that you should do for like all the different databases. Next up, you should make sure that you lock, this backend page and all the central pages in the Teamspace, like the homepage, right? Everything where people don't need to add things like this through a new button, instead just use it to navigate to other places. Make sure you lock those, because that way no one can make any accidental changes. Now, this is of course not 100% secure, right? People can just like unlock it and then change something, but unless there's malicious intent, you're pretty much good to go. And of course, if something goes wrong, you can always roll back any changes through that, or you give people only view access to certain pages. Again, you can do all of that through the user groups that you defined in the beginning. This will now depend, right, sort of what is your access level concept. Super important topic. Make sure that this is set properly. Probably a topic for a whole other video. But yeah, other than that, by just making sure that all databases are on candidate content and that you lock your core pages, you'll already be way ahead of most of the Notion workspaces that I see on a daily basis. Now you know how to set up a solid and scalable Notion workspace for your company. This, of course, is only the beginning. The next challenge is to take this blueprint and really adapt it to your own unique situation. And for that, it really helps to know about my favorite 99 Notion tricks. With that, you'll be in the perfect position to become the Notion champion for your company. Just click here and I will see you in a second.